name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Today we celebrate St. Alexander Nevsky and remember his great acts of courage, his great acts of defense of his homeland, and look at and emulate that. We have the gospel reading today of the man whose fields brought forth plenteously, and his barns weren't big enough, and so he said, "Oh, I have to build new barns and fill them up, and I'll be rich, and I'll be happy, and I'll eat, drink, and be merry." And the Lord said to him, "And tomorrow you die. You won't be able to enjoy all of that stuff." And and I think the key is, he was not rich towards God. He may have been rich in earthly terms, but he was not rich towards God. He put all of his hope in his earthly possessions. He did everything he could, certainly, to build up his earthly possessions, but he was mindless in terms of the riches of the kingdom of heaven, of that richness towards God, which is composed of good works, which is composed of all of gifts of mercy and of love, of feeding the poor, of visiting widows and orphans, of assisting those who are in need, of consoling those who are in sorrow. But rather, he was all into himself. I think this is really a parable that speaks very much to our time and to our culture, because our culture encourages us to be totally materialistic, totally into ourselves. I'll never forget, actually, seeing a bumper sticker on a Rolls Royce. If you can imagine putting a bumper sticker on a Rolls Royce. "He who dies with the best toys wins." No. No. In fact, if that's what the meaning of life is, then I think that's in vain, because you're dead. And all of that stuff, all of those riches, all of that wealth, all of that power to do good, all of that ability to help those who are in need has gone for naught and has been wasted. Remember the marriage service? I think most people in here have been through the marriage service, right? How it gives the blessing for all the good things of the earth to be showered by God upon the people who are being married, in order that they may share with the poor, in order that they might help those who are in need. The purpose of earthly riches is to give us the stewardship over these resources that we might help others who are in need. It's not about us. It's not for ourselves. And if we put our trust in these things and think that they're going to save us and think that they're going to make us happy, we got another thing coming, because it's not going to happen. Sadly, some of the most unhappy people I've ever met have been the richest, because they're burdened down with immense responsibility for all of this stuff. And the more that it feeds their ego, the more unhappy they become, because then there's never enough. Because what we really need, not to feed our ego with some kind of self-importance about wealth and power, but what we really need are riches towards God. That sense of, well, that grace in reality, that grace which comes from being one who cooperates with God in his manifestation of mercy, and of kindness, and of love to those who are in need. St. John Chrysostom is very specific in his sermons. He says, that extra coat that you have in your closet is one that you've taken from the back of a man who is poor. That extra food that you have in your cupboard is food that you've taken out of the mouths of the poor. Not very pleasant words to hear. But when we really think about it, what does the Lord call us to? He calls us to that abundant mercy and love and kindness and generosity, to share with those who are in need, to love everyone who is around us, to show mercy and to show kindness. In other words, to cooperate with Him in His acts and His attitude and His relationship with the world. Because then our energy will be not only our own, it won't be only our actions, it'll be God working with us and through us. Sure, we might be able to accumulate wealth and power and all of these things of this world on our own, on our own power, on our own, as a result of our own work, as a result of our own actions. But isn't it not better to be working with God? And if we put all of our trust in our earthly wealth, where is it going to lead us? Everybody occupies the same amount of space after their death. The same kind of place as we return to the earth. So brothers and sisters, let us think about this parable, which is so apt during this fasting time. And what does it mean to be rich towards God? Rich in prayer, rich in good works, and especially rich in love. Love of our neighbor, forgiving, not judging, accepting, supporting, being there for those who are in need and those who are hurting. For then we liken ourselves to God. And in that is the ultimate richness that God requires of us, and that enables us to live in that heavenly kingdom, not only after our death, but even now, here in this world. Amen. The blessing of the Lord be upon you through His grace and love for mankind, always, now, and ever, and unto ages of ages.